I wanted to wait till full release to play the game before writing up this review for it, as I wanted to have the most up-to-date thoughts possible. I didn't want any issues that existed in the pre-order beta to cloud my judgment. This game is very fun. It stands miles above most other Warhammer games, as that IP is riddled with very subpar titles. But before we dive into the meat of the review, let us touch upon the gameplay. Darktide is a cooperative PVE action shooter game, where you battle your way through hordes of enemies, elites, and giant monsters in order to achieve an objective with 3 other players or bots depending on your matchmaking. Through the mission you'll be picking up things known as materials. This is important because I will touch on these shortly. Upon completing the mission you will be rewarded with gold, experience, and whatever materials you manage to pick up. You fail the mission if your party is completely wiped out. If you are indeed wiped out, you will receive a portion of the EXP and gold depending on the difficulty of the mission. However, you will receive no materials. Materials are important because they are components that allow you to craft and customize your weapon for later in the game. Pros. You start the game off picking one of the 4 available classes: an Ogryn, a Sharpshooter, a Zealot, and finally a Psyker. Each of these classes have access to unique talents, abilities, and weapons that make all their playstyles feel very unique. As time passes, it is without a doubt that DLC will be released into the game that will expand out more classes. The gameplay of Darktide feels pretty good, with the gameplay loop being exceptionally fun. You have your item loadout and you will play through the mission on your selected difficulty. You'll fight hordes of different enemies, as well as a few special units that all have specific sound cues you need to be listening for. The shooting feels great. Each gun feels very unique as well as satisfying when you hit enemies. The close combat system is no different, each weapon providing a unique set of attacks and special actions that help differentiate the available playstyles. The missions have a ton of variety, so it'll never get boring as you'll range from scanning with your auspex to eliminating a target. Slap on the fact that the enemies you do encounter are random. This means no 2 map runs will play identically. On higher difficulties, you'll absolutely need to be on guard as you'll never know what's around the corner. The leveling journey feels rewarding. Along the way to level 30, you'll have a choice of 3 talents every 5 levels that will make up the build for your character. This helps the different playstyles differentiate themselves further. The voice acting and sound design for this game are on point. From the epic screams down to the simple clanking noises of metal, everything on this front is superb and really helps immerse the player into the world that the developers have created. The atmosphere and map design feels authentic to those who are fans of the 40K franchise. No doubt that you will enjoy what has been painstakingly crafted here by the devs. This is the perfect setting to be able to expand out the game further and really deliver some great additional content down the road. Now let's talk about the cons. This game needed more time in the oven. It's pretty obvious that this is the case. It was already delayed a few times, but it still feels undercooked. Not in the gameplay sense, no. That feels pretty solid when you are in games, but it's a matter of the game actually being stable. Personally, I played throughout the beta and had issues with game crashes, but strangely enough, I crashed more times today on launch than any day in the beta. My friend whom I've been enjoying this game with, for some reason as of the day 1 patch, can no longer run the game without suffering a massive memory leak and Darktide consuming 97% of his RAM. There are some serious performance issues here that have yet to be addressed. What I will say is thank goodness the reconnect feature actually is implemented well. When you do crash, you will pretty much always be able to get back into the game. Many games have issues with their reconnect feature just simply not working. But for Darktide it seems to be on point. There is an in-game store, which seems to be the most polished and well-functioning part of the hub. It's crazy to me that crafting is not in the game day 1, but an incredibly polished in-game store is present. To illustrate my point, I'm going to click on the in-game currency cosmetic store and the regular cosmetic store. I will load it up at the same time side by side so you can notice the difference. Notice how the in-game store instantly loads, where the free store feels like it wasn't a priority. I think this comparison speaks for itself. Please note this footage isn't slowed down or altered in any way. It's literally just taking this long to boot up and see the items. Finally, the in-game store engages in your typical predatory tactics that we have all seemed to come to accept nowadays. The classic you have to buy too much currency because things aren't priced exactly the same as skins, as well as an even more aggressive one, which is that skins are on a timer. So you are slapping people with some great fear of missing out. Now, of course, these are just cosmetics, but there's a good way to do cosmetics and there's not. The cosmetics that you can purchase for gold that you have earned on missions not only do not display correctly, but also are simple recolors. Rather disappointing on this front. A disclaimer for the final con. If you are the kind of player who has fun through engaging with the amazing gameplay, then this won't bother you. But if you are the kind of player who enjoys receiving rewards to grind for, then I must inform you that there is little to no reason to continue to grind the game past reaching level 30. At level 30, with how this title is currently operating, you are eligible to purchase potentially max level items through the rotating shop that will refresh every hour. You simply begin playing Refresh Simulator while looking for items to buy. When you do actually jump into the game, you'll likely be playing on difficulty 2 or 3 out of 5 because you want to succeed in the mission. Failing a mission will yield you less money and no materials. So it makes no sense to risk going to difficulty 4 or 5 when the only thing you gain is potentially more money. As it currently stands, once hitting level 30, you'll just be grinding materials and gold from lower difficulty missions, waiting for the shop to favor you and give you some decent items to pick up. So eventually, when the crafting is introduced to the game, you'll craft a legendary item. At that point, you'll either craft a bunch of legendaries through this process or you'll begin grinding a new character class to 30. Again, I must stress, this is not going to be the situation for all players. A lot of people will enjoy the game regardless of the weak endgame, but it's just something that I need to bring up. In conclusion, this game has an incredibly solid foundation to become an excellent title in the future. Right now, it's a good game, with a bright future ahead of it. No doubt the developers will be churning out a ton of content in the future that will flesh out this title's experience and ideally make this review completely obsolete. I recommend picking it up and playing it with friends in about a week or two, once they sort out more of the instability issues. Rating: 7 out of 10. This game is good, and I'm sure in the future it will be great. I'll likely revisit it again once some changes have taken place and more content has dropped. Thanks for watching. If you like the content, consider subscribing. Commenting and liking the video greatly help out the channel. See you in the next one.